Okay, now let me introduce our speaker, who is a fabulous friend of mine, and I'm really excited to hear from her today, Alyssa Denny. She's a national account manager in paperboard packaging. She has been with the Women of Flexo for since the beginning. She was one of the first people to join, so we're really excited to hear from her today. I think she has some really great insight on leadership and throughout her career. I think she has really done a great job of not just how she works. So really excited to hear from someone who walks the walk. All right, so we're going to have Alyssa go ahead and take over. Welcome, Alyssa.
All right, thank you. All right. So thank you, Katie, for the introduction. Here we're going to talk about leadership today as a characteristic, separate from the, thinking about it as a credential. And I want to start by breaking the news to you all that I'm really not qualified to be your speaker today. So I've never done this before. I'm not an acclaimed author. I don't have an MBA. I don't bring you stories of a decorated military background. You're probably wondering, how old is she anyways? If I was wearing a backpack and met you at a coffee shop, you'd probably think I was, working on homework. I get that one a lot. And I understand too that it's lunch break for some of you. So you're just hoping that this is worth your time. A lot of days I would fall into this similar mindset and I would agree with those types of judgments about myself or fall into that, questioning of other people as well. I grew up in a tiny town in rural Wisconsin, population 1,001. I didn't attend a university that people all over the country would recognize by name. And honestly, I had lost my way in my career moves, more than a few times, really thought I had lost my way completely. But many small, insignificant events along the way have combined to bring me here today and give me this opportunity to share some thoughts with you on leadership, refocusing on this subject as the characteristic that it really is, instead of some of the ways that we've come to define leadership as a role that only certain people are, qualified to play that role. So let's just consider that you've had a series of perfect little events and I've had a series of perfect little events bringing us to this conversation today. It really has been on my heart for a long time. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that I carry this around on my chest every day. It's very common for me to be in a situation with my team at work or in my family, mothering toddlers and teenagers, just thinking, am I really good enough to be doing this? Is this my place to say anything here? What should I do? How do I step? And having that imposter syndrome that I'm sure you could all relate to at times. And honestly, more often, I'm probably thinking, oh crap, after the fact, I probably shouldn't have said that. More often than wondering if I should say something. That's my nature, is to say it anyways, and then kind of wonder afterwards if it was a good idea. So we all have some unconscious bias about what type of people are qualified to be hired into those jobs that we dream of, or what types of people, run businesses. And some of those would be, positive images of people that are qualified. And some would be maybe stereotypical things that are kind of negative, or maybe judgments that we're making on people. A couple of examples for you to point out some of the biases that we are all maybe carrying unconsciously. Our resumes. It's our attempt to convince strangers of our worth. We're all very familiar with this and we labor over them and we try to make ourselves look qualified for that thing we're thinking about. What have we done? How long were we there? What was your job title? Where did you go to school? All those kinds of things. We're constantly trying to polish that and make that look, convincing. I think too, those unconscious biases, thinking about Wall Street, that's where businesses are run, right? And the sidewalks are full of suits. And that's what leadership looks like. Or when you attend an event and somebody up on the stage, the types of people who deserve to be on stage, That's glamorous. They must have something wonderful. They probably have accomplished so many things, and that person deserves to be on the stage. And I am in the place that I belong here in my seats watching, right? Or the fancy glass trophies that you've probably seen on shelves in the hallways of your offices. And those are the people that have put their time in. And they are the people that should be leading companies. But what we're here to do today is to think about this a little differently. What do our companies and coworkers and customers want from us as individuals? I think the answer is they are looking for somebody who understands the vision and will get things done. They'll get things done for the company, or as your customers, we're gonna get things done for them, and they're paying our bills. And that's what they want from us. They want these leadership qualities. Because people will follow leaders and they'll rally behind them. People will sacrifice for leaders that they're loyal to. And they want to collaborate with that type of person. And ultimately, we want to do business with people that are really good leaders. So again, looking at what is this thing that we're all trying to embody, I would suggest that it's not all those things we've come conditioned to imagine on the last slide. What I've observed is that leadership is not about a certain position, and really it's a posture. And most of all, it's not a credential. It is truly a characteristic. I was in Asheville, North Carolina a few weeks ago, visited the Biltmore Estate. It was really fun if you've been there. And there happened to be a touring art exhibit on site featuring Leonardo da Vinci. And some of his quotes were displayed on these big screens. And the picture here you see I took standing in a room of 360 visuals of his artwork and some quotes and some writings that he's done. And this one really stood out to me. I've been impressed with the urgency of doing. Knowing is not enough, we must apply. And being willing is not enough, we must do. Impressed with the urgency of doing. We're impressed by people who have that urgency to take action. And this struck me, again, just a couple of weeks ago, knowing that I would have the opportunity to talk about leadership. And I felt like this was really validating for some of my ideas here. It's not about what you've done, but what is the mobilizer for all of us to actually take action. And I've acknowledged, I think there's at least one specific thing that's really common, a common thread in our abilities to harness this leadership as a characteristic, something I think is pretty common as something that mobilizes all of us to do and apply. And I believe that's courage. I think that mobilizer in all of these areas is actually the courage from within us to do and apply the ideas and passions that we have and that we identify out in the world, and how to apply some of our ideas. And this is actually something that you can have and do have right now, despite any of those other credentials that we talked about on the couple of slides ago. So we're going to discuss some examples in three categories. The first being, they say there's leaders and there's followers. Well, what is it about those leaders that make them stand out? And how is it that courage is, coming from within them and actually mobilizing them to stand out in a crowd? The second, why do we really need to have courage in how we treat other people and lead others? And the third being, how do these courageous behaviors actually drive business results? Because we know there's pressure on all of us to make sure that not only does it look good and feel good and warm and fuzzy, but actually producing results. And I think courage actually has the biggest play in that section here. My list of examples was the longest in getting results for our business. So let's jump into the first category. This one I think is a little bit more natural for us. Why do some people just stand out? Well, I think that they have the courage to connect with people. So they enter a group, and this doesn't mean everyone's, only leaders, are extroverted people. They have the courage to make connections. And the word charisma comes to mind. And this is the Webster definition of charisma, and I just love it. A personal magic of leadership, arousing popular loyalty and enthusiasm. It's magic. You guys, charisma is magic. I love that. So having the courage to actually make connections with people. And, we may all have things that we're passionate about, but having the courage to say them out loud is a little bit different. Courageous leaders, they are willing to speak up about what they care about or have an opinion. And that doesn't mean they're speaking up and shutting everyone out. It means I'm willing to be part of the conversation. How we treat people is the next category. But they speak up and they show up to things, and importantly, they try things, accepting the risk of embarrassment because their vision for something is greater and more valuable than perhaps being embarrassed along the way. That takes courage, and those people stand out. And lastly, they have the courage to kind of get into groups and organize people, and then identify the common goals of that group that they're in, and delegate actions start to be taken to sort of move that group along. And that takes courage as well, to just say, I'm going to kind of delegate the situation. So those are examples of how courage really drives leaders to stand out. In the topic of how we treat people and lead others, a lot of courage here too. One example is asking tough questions of our teammates, of our family members, friends, communities, asking tough questions that could yield answers from those people you may actually have to respond to. It takes courage. That there are sensitive topics. There's things about, there's people in your life that well enough, you kind of could just avoid that topic. It'd be easier to just avoid that topic. Or maybe people who report to you, who you just you just would rather not say, is there anything you're struggling with? Because that would mean you'd have to respond, right? So that is a courageous action that, people with leadership skills will flex that and say, I'm going to dive in. Time is money, right? So another thing that takes courage for leaders to do is risk losing both time, money, your resources by offering those things to somebody else and seeking out ways to serve other people, because that risks, giving pieces of your resources. And it takes courage to say, no, how can I help you? And going out and purposely looking for those opportunities to help others. Or after training and teaching somebody, it takes courage to let them try it. If it's your project or it's your department, it's your team, and someone a reflection of you for training a new person, or, it takes courage to just give up control and kind of sit back, but that that's better for the person that you're supporting. Eventually they need to be able to try it. And so that takes courage to hold their developmental needs above those of your, what might make you uncomfortable. Lastly, on this slide, having the courage to advocate for others and sponsor the path to success for other people. And oftentimes conversations about individuals are happening when they're not in the room, right? Think about performance reviews and, those cycles that happen each year. Leaders will talk about maybe high potentials in their company. And a lot of times the fate of those people are being decided when they're not even there. And so how we lead on behalf of others and advocate and look for ways to sponsor somebody else or multiple people through the process, and wanting to advocate for other people. It takes courage. You're kind of sticking your neck out for somebody else. And in the last subject, like I said, there was so many here, I had to pare it down, but courageous actions and behaviors that actually drive business results. Holding others accountable. It takes courage to be the person who follows up. Hey, just checking in that thing you committed to, and right, we can sometimes be the pest a little bit, but you're driving progress by having the courage to just remind people, hey, this is what we're working on, this is what you've committed to, this is what I committed to, and drive progress, making sure that we get to those business results. Showing vulnerability to other people takes courage. We know that vulnerability, just that word makes us all kind of like, ugh. It's required to build personal relationships with people, which is required to navigate the politics of our organizations. You know, the bigger you get, the almost harder it is to like navigate around and who knows who and who's been here, and you don't know all those things. If you're maybe newer to a long-standing organization, there's politics involved for all of us in our relationships. And so being vulnerable takes courage to connect and to start making connections across the organization. And that will get results, because when you need to leverage other people's skills, you are already connected to who those resources are. You're willing to enter negotiations on things that are on behalf of the greater good. Again, negotiations. Like we don't like to do that, right? We don't like negotiating, bartering. Some people do, and some people are great at, and the rest of us kind of feel uncomfortable. But leaders have the courage to go in and sit in that uncomfortableness when they know that there's a greater good at hand, either for their team or their company. They have the courage to be the inviter, despite the risk of rejection. Another thing that makes a lot of people uncomfortable, is like, just that rejection. If you invite someone to lunch, or you invite somebody to join your team, or you say, hey, can we catch up? It's somebody you've never met before. And again, this is back to vulnerability to build relationships. But the benefit here and the business result is bringing the right people together in the right circles. We'll leverage our differences and our strengths inside the group, and great, multiple minds can do more than what one leader can do on their own. And lastly, the courage to stretch into roles and opportunities, saying yes before feeling completely prepared for it. Takes courage. And it gets results, whether that's for you personally or for your team or your business, by stretching into something, right? You could just do the same thing forever, and that may be comfortable for you. But if you're looking for leadership opportunities and you're looking for like things to keep, giving you opportunities, it's going to take some stretching into roles before you're even really ready. But the benefit here is I didn't list a single qualification or credential. From the first couple of slides, none of the examples in those three categories had anything to do with years of experience, how many direct reports you have now or have had before, your advanced degrees, or what your job title is right now, and whether it has acronyms in it or not. The leadership really isn't about all of that when you look at really the leadership as a characteristic and as a personality trait and as something that we can sort of flex into. And we may have goals, perhaps it is a certain title, and that is fine. But sometimes it's going to be all these things that you're doing for other people and for yourself that nobody sees, that will create the life that you want. So thinking about you for a second in your workplace, in your peers, and your org structure, and little piece of world that you live in, corner of the world, think for a second about the circles of people inside your org or projects that make you feel like, ugh, I don't really fit into this circle, or make you feel not good enough, or maybe you join the meeting, but you kind of just retreat into the background. Like, I just kind of avoid diving into those things. Where are you holding back or not really getting involved because you feel like it's really not your place? And maybe even more difficult for us is, who have you been avoiding? Maybe it's something in your stomach, you kind of know that you should connect with that person, but it'd just be easier not to. I think we've all had that. And so thinking about those things that we just kind of shy away from, and what would it look like for you to try any of those examples and have a little more courage, what ideas would you share? Or how would you step out? Who could you connect with? And what kind of dominoes do you think? I mean, we can't even imagine them, but there are dominoes that would fall, little events one after another that would lead us to opportunities that we can't even picture right now. So again, back to the best part, you already have what you need to be the leader that you picture. The light is always green. The leader that you picture as the most qualified person for the job that you want, you have those skills right now, because it's all in about our ability to flex some courage and try some of those. Those are just a few examples. Expressing your passions out loud, find ways to be in service to other people, and say yes before you're ready, which perhaps sounds familiar to how I opened this presentation, right? Here I am, absolutely did not feel ready. And so saying yes to opportunities, you see them as opportunities and you find the courage and you sort of do that anyways. And I'm proposing that growth and career opportunities start to appear more plentiful as you start to try those things. So that's my suggestion and my piece of hope for you, that you already have what you need to really see leadership as a characteristic within you and disassociate it from the credentials or qualifications that sometimes we get wrapped up in. So that's it for me. I have my email here. I'd love to connect with you guys, and if find me on LinkedIn. I know that Emily was going to see if there was any questions or comments from the group.
Yes, I am. Hey, everyone. Number one, Alyssa, great job. I thought that was a really enriching talk, and I was fortunate enough to read Alyssa's article about this way back when, and it's so great to see it come to fruition in this way. That's, different way to communicate with people. One of the things that I really caught on to that I loved was, I wrote it down, leadership as a posture and courage as a mobilizer.
Right.
Perfect. Crushed it. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, go ahead and send them into the Q&A chat. There's a little bubble down at the bottom of your Zoom call screen. We have one in from Miss Laura Wright, who's also on the Women of Flexo committee with us. She says, love your comments about being an advocate for others. Being a leader means finding people's strengths and helping to foster those. Some managers focus on weaknesses of the people who report to them, creating a really negative environment. Right. Any thoughts on that? Anything you want to add?
No, I think I really picture those conversations. Like, you don't think that they are supposed to happen that way, but they do. You find yourselves in meetings talking about whether it's something that happened this week, or this person didn't do the right thing, or this is why that issue broke down. And we kind of can get caught in, sharing assumptions about problems. And I think part of leadership in how we treat other people and how we lead our team is being part of those conversations, whether that, that's you as a manager or that's you as a peer. Just maybe at times there's going to be opportunities to stand up and say, wait a minute, that's really not, I don't think that's what happened, or we should double check, or holding off assumptions. And I think that's what really comes to mind for me, is like, to Laura's point, defer from negative cultures where we just talk about people's what they're not good at, and make sure we're taking opportunities as leaders to be a little more courageous to spread positive news.
And to your point, I feel like it's easiest for people on average to look for the negative and to put blame somewhere else.
We all can do that, for sure.
So it really does take courage to say, hold on, this may not be a people thing. Let's look at how we can support that person and sponsor them and be there for them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. So we have another one that says, so insightful. Thank you for having the courage to share this, Alyssa. Inspiring. I second that. Absolutely.
Exactly. Like I said, case in point. Did I feel prepared? Absolutely not.
But what you do is you talk to your people, you get your people to hype you up and make sure that you're ready. You get yourself ready.
Right.
You do the dang thing.
Say yes anyways. Yeah.
Love it. Someone else said, thank you so much. Great session. Congratulations. Let's see. All right. If there are no other questions, we can give it just another minute
Yeah.
to see if anyone else has anything to come in. But any final thoughts from you, Alyssa, on like one bite-sized piece that people can take
Yeah.
away?
I think just think about the things. I think if everyone spent a couple minutes, even after you hang up, reflecting like, what is it that makes me kind of uncomfortable about leadership or my goals? Look into that a little bit and realize maybe where you could flex a little more courage, or, you know, express your idea and try it anyways, and maybe break down some of the things that are making you feel insecure about some of your big goals.
Wonderful. I think that's really good. That's really powerful. And just asking yourself the question is half the battle, I think, right? Just getting started. It's like, what am I concerned about?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
So on this topic of leadership development, you know, we want to be leaders, but what is holding us back?
I have another question for you.
Sure.
Do you have any personal strategies for dealing with the imposter complex?
Yeah. Okay.
That one's a doozy, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's like, it's actually having, you know, feeling that imposter complex actually also talks you out of doing anything about it. Right. And so
Yep.
I think, you know, your first thing is your community and your network, right? In reaching out to some people within your circle. And I actually just did this week. I'm kind of stretching into a new just job, you know, a promotion at work earlier this year. And I just did this week, like, there has got to be somebody feeling what I'm feeling. And then reaching out to that, you know, somebody in my network and saying, am I off base here? Like, this makes me feel like I don't really know what I'm doing. And like, just start to talk about, like, what is it that makes you feel insecure? And a lot of times, almost all the time, everyone around you is going to be like, you're crazy. And sometimes you need a reminder, right? to remind you of the things that you have done to get here. And you're not an imposter, and none of us know what we're doing until we've done it before.
Yep.
Right. So I think that's really leveraging your network, and you've got to have positive influences, right? Don't call your sister-in-law who always tells you how bad you are, right? Look at your network and leverage, you know, people who've felt this before or done this before, and admitting and being vulnerable of like, I haven't done this before, who has? And I think helping dig yourself out of that feeling like you're out of place.
Yeah. And I would add to that, look for people that you want to be like, right? Seek out those people that are living a life that, or have parts of their life that you admire, that you seek to have something similar in your future, and ask them questions, right? Have that courage to say, I don't know, but I want to.
Yeah. And that leads us right back to the mentorship, right? So the FTA, Women of Flexo, offers that opportunity as well to say, you know, establishing some mentors, whether that's organically or if you're not sure who that would be, and, you know, participating in an offering like a more formal offering like ours, to say, can somebody help me, and, you know, connect with somebody.
Yep. And I think we hit all of the big ones. We have mentorship in a formal way. We have some mentorship in informal ways, just the nature of our group.
Yeah.
We have the coaching aspect where we get to, just by interacting with one another, we get to learn each other's strategies. And then sponsorship, right? I think speaking for myself, I think I've definitely learned how to be a better advocate for people in general, to their faces, in front of them, and when they're not in the room.
Yeah.
It's a good one to learn.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Well, I think we are just about wrapped up with
Awesome
questions. And I just want to say a big thank you, Alyssa. You did a wonderful job, and thank you again for having the courage to do this for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad to talk about leadership and help us break down some things that maybe stop us from approaching our goals.
Mhm. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Feel free to check out womenoflexo.org. And if you have any questions, you know where to find us. Thanks, everyone.